Welcome everybody to a Kerbal Space Program 2 video. Today we are building a rocket that'll be relatively simple to make it to the Mun from Kerbal. We're not just going to land on the Mun though, we are specifically hunting down the new Mun Arch. For those who don't know, in Kerbal Space Program 1 there was a Mun Arch that was just a pile of rocks and then later updated to have a new form. So I wanted to fly to the new Mun Arch in KSP2 and see what that one is like. So I'm currently building the rocket as I voice over. Building the pod was relatively simple. I wanted to have as few parts as possible, but I also wanted to use some of the new parts, like the larger landing legs that you can see here. And then I also put on some other things. I put on some ladders, I put on solar panels, you know, basic stuff to get us there. I believe later on in this build I had to go back and add in RCS because I was like, well, I'm not really sure if it's going to be great, it's going to be stable, I want to make sure I'm able to have control over everything, so I went back and added RCS. I added a heat shield, decoupler, you know, basic stuff. It's your basic, well, it's not really basic, it's just really over-engineered Moonlander, pretty much. It is going to be a direct ascent mission. You know, I'm not doing anything fancy, I just want to get there, I want to land near the arch, I want to see it, I want to plant a flag, I want to get back. So then, you know, with the pod complete, we went on to building the orbital stage and then the ascent stage, and it all worked out pretty well. I don't think there was any design changes I had to do. I don't think I launched this thing more than once, although I did have quite a few issues once we actually got into space. I believe we had more than one, you know, bug of like, oh, RCS and SAS decided we're not going to work anymore, so have fun. But I will talk more about that once we get to it. So here we are on the launch pad. We get to love to see those lovely pink fins as it, you know, takes a moment to register the textures and everything. But yeah, we get to listen to the countdown. It goes by fairly quickly. I do love the countdown. I wish it was, you know, actual registrable numbers so you can tell of how much longer there actually is, but I like how it is. And here we are with launch. You'll notice that I forgot to put struts on the rocket, so all the boosters, you know, they go inwards, and I was like, oh crap, if I try to turn this thing at all, the Kraken's gonna kill me. So I didn't. I basically decided, you know what, whatever, I'll just have this really inefficient upwards first stage, and I won't turn it all, I'll just go straight up, and I'll just, you know, I'll deal with it later. Because I didn't want to risk having to reset. This save, yeah, because this save file doesn't have quick save, doesn't have reverse either, because it's the same one I'm using on my streams. So, you know, we're just going through, looking around, checking out the scenery. It looks great. This game looks absolutely wonderful. And looking down at the Space Center below as you rise up into the air, and it is quite amazing. Now, this ascent does take quite a while to get through, even at, I think I'm playing this back at 300% speed, and so it's just, it goes for a while. I don't really have too much to say about this portion. It's just where we are. Things get more interesting a bit later on, but for now it's just give it some time when we get to outer space. Just how pretty much every other rocket launch goes. So, with the decoupling of the first stage, you know, we're going up, and I can say, okay, boosters are gone, I can finally start turning, and I tilt it over a little bit, and then quickly realize I've completely lost control as it just starts to fall over a lot, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, I'm trying to correct for it, You can see at the bottom of the nav ball where it's showing my inputs for direction. I have it like all the way to the left and we're still tilting right. So we get close to the horizon and I'm like, I'm gonna have to redo this entire launch, we've lost control, but no. I save it at the very last second and we get back up. And it's beautiful. So I'm like, okay, I have it, we're fine. I have that much delta V left. I think it's like, 2,200 meters per second. And so I check the map, like, okay, how high am I going? And it's not very high. So it's just, alright, well, we gotta burn. I'm gonna, go back, point towards... I can't say north, because it's not north, it's up. I try to increase my vertical acceleration a bit. And here you go. It helps, it does. We do make it into a high enough trajectory. We get our apoapsis high enough so we can properly orbit around the planet later on. Although that does take a couple of attempts, as you will soon see. Even. Sorry if I'm stumbling over my words a lot today, damn. So yeah, here we are. You can see on the map that we are increasing our apoapsis. We're getting closer to where we want to be in the orbit before we run out of fuel. And we're just going. And so, after a while of burning, we begin to get into a stable orbit. Our apoapsis continues to rise, everything's fun. And we have a little glitch, a little hiccup, wherein our SAS control goes away. So I had to save and reload, and it was not very fun, but it's fine. If that happens to you, you can just reload a save and it'll go away. And then we're like, okay, cool, everything's ready. We're gonna continue our burn. We're gonna run this, bottom stage out of fuel, and then we'll split to our orbital stage, and everything will be fine. As you see here in a second. There it is. And now, I don't know what happened here, I really don't. You'll see me, burn into an orbit, and then I'll make a maneuver node to encounter the Mun. You'll see that here in a moment, but allow me to explain. For some reason, when we encountered the Mun, we got the Mun encounter. Here you see me making the maneuver node. Once we get the Mun encounter, I accelerate time warp to, get there faster, because no one wants to wait the literal hours it'll take to get to anywhere in Kerbal Space Program. And so we get to the maneuver node, I burn, and I set to the other time warp, and here. It just goes away. We never encounter the Mun, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just time warp until we encounter it again, and that time it throws us all the way back into Kerbin, and it's just a huge mess. So I end up having to reload the previous save and just try again. So we try again. We split this, ascent stage off, we get into our orbital stage. Here, watch the track lines. For some reason, our previous stage gets, stuck to us with the physics, and you'll see it better here in a second, where you can see as that other arc, that other trajectory line, is stuck with us all throughout this time warp. It doesn't get any farther away from us, and I have no idea why. It's super weird, but it's just there. So we get, you know, our ship into orbit, and I'm like, well, maybe it'll go away if I time warp again. So that's what I end up doing. Once we get our orbit here, you know, I hit time warp again. It follows us. It continues to follow us until about here, and then it for some reason splits off and it's fine again. And I have no idea what caused that. It was just a really, really weird bug. And but it's fine. We got into our orbit, and now it's just a matter of trying to get another intercept with the Mun again. And so here I am, opening up these solar panels, you know, getting the ship ready for its not quite interplanetary voyage, but, you know, traveling from Kerbin to the Mun. And you see me burning here. I didn't set up a maneuver node this time. I just was like, okay, I'll just do the old tried and true trick of seeing the moon on the horizon and then just burning. And it worked. I got my orbit. I was a bit more careful with the time warp this time, making sure not to screw myself over with it. And then just waiting around in space as I drift towards the sphere of influence, as you see with that big bubble around the Mun. That is its gravitational influence on the ship. And so once we get to there, I will be able to properly, you know, burn everything and fix my orbit up inside the moon. And here we are. We just entered the sphere of influence of the Mun. As you see, I make another maneuver node, trying to, you know, just see where I want it to go. Trying to make the most efficient path because I want to have it look nice. Eventually I decide, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to be that efficient with it. I have a very overly built ship. I have way more Delta V than I need. I'm just going to burn it periaps and be done with it. And that is exactly what I end up doing, as you see here. I do end up, like here, if you watch this a bit beyond, you'll note that I pretty much use this stage all the way up until landing. I don't really ever use the landing stage to land until I'm pretty much just a few kilometers over the surface. I say a few kilometers, I mean like a few hundred feet, just because there's so much more Delta V than I actually needed in this stage, and I wanted to crash it so I didn't have more space junk clogging up the tracking station. And you'll see that here in a moment once we get to that part. So here we are at periaps, just preparing, getting into retrograde so we can burn and lower our apoapsis down so we get a more circular orbit, as you see here. We're doing this so I can have a bit more control where I want to land. I want to be in a specific spot. Like I said, we're not just trying to land on the moon. We want to go to the new Mun Arch, which is just above that crater there. I'll zoom in here in a moment, but you see that larger crater, and it's just slightly to the north and to the right of that. Here I have my maneuver node. I'm trying to, you know, move it to where I actually want to land, and like, okay, well, here we are. And so I get to the maneuver node, and we start the burn. So this is just, you know, a general, it's roughly in this area, and at this point I could actually see it from here, and I think you can too, is that little spot that looks like it's, you know, it's got this weird, it looks almost like a texture glitch from this high up. Once we get out of the map view, you'll be able to see it. If I look down at the ground, it's just a little tiny shining dot at this point, slightly above where the rocket ship is on the screen. If you want to look there, you can see it. But yeah, we're basically at this point, and I'm like, okay, we don't really need maneuver nodes. I just finished that one, and I'm just gonna, you know, do the rest of this by eye. I put a little save down. I'm like, okay, just in case something goes horribly wrong, then I can, you know, fix it up. We time warp a little bit, slow ourselves down. It's just a matter of waiting at this point, really, as we get closer and closer to our destination. So as we got closer to the arch. You can see it a lot better now. But there was a bit of an issue with the mix of throttling and warp, because I was like, okay, well, I want to take this slow, but I don't want to actually take it slow, so I was using time warp to speed things up. And you'll note sometimes it says, oh, throttle is, you know, locked when you're in time warp, but I wasn't time warping. And I'm like, well, I need to use throttle. Let me change my throttle. And it didn't. So that was a fun little thing to work around as we got closer and closer. I really didn't want to crash at this point because, you know, my last save was all the way up in orbit. But we didn't. We did make it back, you know, relatively safe. I believe I do make another save here. Yes, I do. And like, well, in case something goes wrong at this point, I want to have like a right before I land save. And so yeah, I don't really try to get any closer at this point. It's just a matter of, all right, I see it. I can EVA the rest of the way, and I'm just gonna land here. And it's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. And so just before touchdown, it says, actually, no, not everything's going to be fine. The camera is going to not work anymore. It's just going to cease functionality. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just go to the static camera here for a moment. I'll land, and then I'll fix it. So we do eventually come to a touchdown. Got rid of the speed effects on the video, so this is real-time speed as I land close to the ground. And there it is. I think just here in a second we're gonna hit. I'm gonna turn off the engine, and then I'm gonna bounce all over the place because the springs on these landing legs are way too strong for the weight of this vehicle. I wanted to use these legs because they looked cool, but it was probably a bit overkill. I probably could have used any of the smaller legs and been fine. But I wanted to use these, so I used these. So at this point, you know, the camera is still being a pain, so I end up EVAing our Kerbal that's inside the ship, and then saving, and then reloading, and it's just, that fixes it. But it's a pain. It's like, why did that even happen? What caused that? Why do I suddenly not have really any good camera control? And you'll see, it gets even worse once I EVA, right? So I click the little plus, then I click on him, I click EVA. Jebediah is now out of the rocket, and it's a mess, because I'm like, the camera's glitching inside of the rocket. I'm in a first-person view, I think is what this is. And then, you know, it's a pain, it's really weird. So, I changed the camera again to this, like, cinematic camera here, and then I try to fix it by just switching through the different camera modes another time. Nothing works. So I just save and then come back, and it's all fixed again. Everything's great, and I don't know what causes that, but it sure is funky. But regardless, everything's done. We're on the Mun, and the Mun Arch is right in front of us. So all we have to do now is go there. And so with the EVA jetpack, you know, it's just a matter of flying, and it takes a bit, but we do make it. As we get closer and closer to this golden arch. In KSP1, it was just, you know, the Mun Arch was, oh, it's rocks in this arch, it's really cool, but now it's, you know, it's broken apart, it's been destroyed, and it's this weird map of the solar system underneath it. You have all of the planets and all their moons represented in the lights on the top of the arch, and it's just really weird looking. I think it's actually really cool. I think it's actually very, very cool, but I don't know what it's for. I don't know what it means, but it's very interesting. I'm just looking around. We do get to the top of the arch and plant our flag, and then after that it's just, alright, we're done, let's get home, and everything is good again. So yeah, here we are, and we're on the top of the arch. I plant the flag. It takes me a while to, you know, figure out what I'm going to call it, because I am horrible with names, but I do end up just calling it Mun Arch. Very creative, I know. But I figured, you know what, I can track it in the tracking station. If I want to put something else here later on the line, maybe once we start having colonies in the game, I can just, you know, follow the flag back, and we'll have our, you know, marker to say, here's where you want to go, here's where you want to land. But at this point, you know, I'm done with the Mun. We've seen what we wanted to see. I just want to get a last good look at it and then start flying back towards our ship. So as we are, you know, flying back to our rocket, I wanted to say a few things. For one, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe. I do stream, I do videos like this sometimes. Admittedly, this is my first voiceover, I guess, video. Obviously I did the one for the Warplanes tournament a while back, but that was a bit different. I didn't really voice over the actual footage. So I'm sorry if it's a bit clunky. You know, not really the best at this. I am fairly new. Shocking, I know. Not a perfectionist. I just kind of wanted to do something as a little bit of fun. And I figured, you know what, this will be nice to do. So I did it. So we do get into orbit back around the Mun. And we continue. Now, so to get back to Kerbin, you have to do some really fun things. So if you get onto the orbital line of the Mun in the, I guess, in the direction that it is going, and then burn prograde there, you will have a return to Kerbin orbit. I kind of go too far. I don't get it perfectly right, but that's fine. I can just recorrect once I'm out of the sphere of influence, which is exactly what I do. You'll see here in a moment. As I go back, I leave the sphere of influence of the Mun, and then burn just a little bit more retrograde to get our periaps inside the atmosphere of the, well, I guess I would say Earth, but it's actually not Earth, it's Kerbin. Whatever that means. It's the Earth analog, who cares what I call it, really. I'm sure someone cares, but I don't. So I put away the solar panels just before we hit atmosphere, and then from there, it's just a matter of, okay, cool, burn off the rest of my fuel, slow down as much as I can, and then I can get into the re-entry stage, which you will see here in a moment, as it actually messes up. So my staging, somehow, through one of the glitches, decided staging doesn't want to work anymore, so I have to go manually to the decoupler and then decouple it, and then I, again, have to manually arm the parachutes, because for some reason, just the staging doesn't want to work anymore. So I go in, I arm the parachutes, they deploy, we start slowing down significantly, and at this point it's pretty much a guarantee that we land. You know, there's really nothing standing in our way. But that's it. That's really all there is. We're gonna land here in this nice little valley between two mountains, and then we've done it. We've successfully sent a rocket to the Mun Arch, went to the Mun Arch, planted our flag in the top of the beautiful construction, and made our way home without... Okay, I did have to reload a couple saves, but not because I crashed, because the game bugged, and so I would count this as, you know, on a singular attempt. And there were no crashes or, you know, explosions. It was just some bugs that lost us control of the ship. But yeah, that is everything, and I do hope you enjoyed the video today, and I hope to see you in another one. See you soon.